right now tell you a little bit about what is on my little mind today. As I said, and as we just heard from Peretz Halevi, this Shabbat is called Shabbat Nachamu, the Shabbat of comfort. And as I just said when I introduced the Haftorah, that after 3 weeks of sadness over the destruction of the temple and our exile, the saddest day, Tisha B'Av, we try to return to positive and constructive daily activities. It's not so easy. So these Haftorah, these Haftorot are going to help us a little bit. So the Shabbos after Tisha B'Av, we always read Parshat Va'etchanan, always. It opens with a deep emotional moment, and Moshe Rabbeinu's begging God to let him enter the promised land. So the Jewish calendar is kind of an amazing thing. We always read this parsha. We start with Devarim right before Tisha B'Av, and we read today's Torah reading right after Tisha B'Av. Today happens to be Tisha B'Av, but I'm sorry, Tu B'Av. But Tisha B'Av is the saddest day, and Tu B'Av is a happy day, the 15th of Av. Anyway, the Torah reading opens with a deeply emotional moment. What is it? Moshe Rabbeinu's begging God. That's where we find him. He's begging God to let him enter the promised land. He's begging God. He already was told, no, you can't go. And now he's begging God, he wants to go. I mean, begging. The Midrash teaches us that Moshe prayed 515 times. And that equals the numerical value of the word Va'edchanan. So that's the gematria. The numerical value of Va'edchanan is 515. So Moshe begs God 515 times to reconsider God should reconsider the decree that Moshe should be allowed to go into the great land, the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey. He should be allowed, period. Well, God gives him an answer. No. No. Rav Lach, God says. It's enough for you. Stop already. You're not going to enter. Period. Forget about it. For many of us, this is really a hard moment to absorb. It really is. A lot of people who study Torah actually break down in tears at this point because we're so inspired by what Moshe did during his life. He didn't even want to do it. Remember, he argued with God. I don't want to do this, but he did it, and he devoted his basically the last 40 years of his life in the desert. So, by the way, Moshe was 120, right? The first 120 he lived in Egypt. The second 120 he lived in the wilderness, and he was a shepherd tending sheep. I'm sorry, 40, 40, 40. The first 40, Egypt, the next 40, attending the sheep, and the last 40, dealing with the children of Israel, who were never quiet, were never happy, who were murmuring the entire time, was the word they used, but that means complaining. Can you imagine? I have to ask you this. I don't know how many of you have ever been on a temple board, on a synagogue board, or a board of any kind of nonprofit. I don't know if you have. Can you imagine sitting on that board for 40 years? You'd go crazy after 3 or 4. I mean, it's all they do. Everybody complains all the time if they're Jewish. All right? So Moshe still wanted to be with them. God said, no, no, no. You had enough. That's it. No more. But we have a hard time with this because we think that's a punishment that Moshe, maybe God should have changed and said, okay. But God's not fickle. God isn't a fickle magic man in the sky. That's not what God is. We didn't create God, God created us. God said no, it's no. But God's, God wouldn't let Moshe have his deepest desire, his deepest hopes and prayers. He couldn't do it. So I have a question for you and even for me that I would ask myself and do. If Moshe, the holiest man who ever lived, the greatest prophet who ever lived, the greatest leader who ever lived, was not allowed by God to follow his own hopes and prayers, what about, ask the question, what about me? Meaning us. What about you and I? Is God going to let us follow our own hopes and prayers? It's a good question. Moshe, finally, when is done saying no to him and he's done praying, when he realizes after 515 asks, it's no, he settles down. He doesn't display bitterness. He doesn't rebel. And he doesn't even show any open disappointment. He doesn't show it. But what does Moshe do? He asks God, how can I still serve my people even if I will not be with them? In other words, what can I do to help them after I can't be with them? Oh man, what a question. That's what I mean. Who else would say that? I would ask that. So, immediately after being told that he's not allowed to enter the land, Moshe designates 6 Arei Miklat, which are the 6 cities of refuge, for those people who kill unintentionally. So, if you happen to kill somebody and it wasn't intentional, what are we going to do with you? We can't put you to death. What are we going to do? Moshe sets aside 6 cities of refuge, places for them to go, so that the family of those that they unintentionally killed won't have access to them. It's not like a punishment where you go to jail. It's to protect them. It's very humane, very, very wise thing. So he's doing this, but they're not even in Israel yet. They're still on this side of on the east side of the Jordan River, the Yarden. And he sets up these things, these borders for these cities. But thing is, while Moshe is not going to be entering the land, he's not allowed, he's certain of that, he ensures that that life will be much more just, compassionate, and safe for people who need that the most. That's quite a thing he did. God didn't tell him, he just did it. So confronted with disappointment, Moshe still shows us that faithfulness does not depend on getting our way. We can be faithful even if we beg God for something and God doesn't give it to us, or we don't get it. It is about remaining devoted to the purpose. Why are you here? What are you doing to try to make the world a little bit better than the way you found it? What is that? What's your purpose? Why are you here? Even if you're frustrated because other things aren't going right, you still have a purpose. What is it? What are you doing to make that happen? And if it isn't happening, what else will you do instead? I know you all know who King David is, David HaMelech. In the Tanakh, in the Jewish Bible, David was the one who wanted to build the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple. He had dreams about it. That was his whole purpose in life. He wanted to build a Holy Temple. But when he asked God, what did God say to him? Nope. No, David, your son, Shimshon, Solomon, will build it, not you. Not Shimshon, that's Samson. Your son will build it, not you. Again, David could have responded with frustration. Did he? No. He began preparing for the building of the temple, even though he couldn't build it. He purchased the land for the Temple Mount. So it was King David HaMelech, who bought the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. He gathered the materials. He got them all ready to go. And in an act of spiritual generosity, David HaMelech composed one of the Psalms to be sung at the dedication of the temple that he would never live to see built. Mizmor Shir Chanukat Habayit. Many of you recognize those words. That was the psalm that he wrote to be sung at the dedication of the temple, and it was. Now, think about it. Both Moshe and David, two of the greatest heroes in the Jewish Bible, were denied their greatest dreams. They were denied it. Yet they responded not with despair, but with constructive love. The reaction to God's no was, then how can I contribute? Still, how can I do it? No, you can't do that. How can I still contribute? These are people you don't run into very often. Not because they're no longer alive. I'm talking about people who behave that way. Along the same thing, I just learned an interesting but seldom taught story about Jonas Salk. You all know who Dr. Jonas Salk is. He's the one who developed the polio vaccine. He's a Jewish guy, a nice Jewish doctor. But he developed the polio vaccine. Do you know he refused to patent it? He never patented it. He didn't want to. You know, if he had patented that polio vaccine, he would have been a billionaire. And that's not what he was interested in. He preferred to save lives going forward. That was his life's mission. Make the world a little bit better than the way you found it. That's what Judaism is all about, and that's what he does. But there's another story. Maybe you did know that he never patented it. Maybe you did, I don't know. But there's another story about him that's maybe even greater. Now he's in his 80s, not now, but when he was in his 80s, he devoted his life working on the vaccine to prevent HIV/AIDS. I don't know if you know this. He devoted his life's work to developing a vaccine for HIV/AIDS, just like he did for polio. The thing is, that was something that was a lot different than polio. And he knew it would be unlikely for him to find the final cure for it. He knew it, or the final prevention to stop it completely. But he worked incessantly during his last weeks. He's in his 80s. He's still working. And he's laying the groundwork for future generations. He was preparing to let his work be taken over by others so that they could do it. And you know what he said? This is a quote. Hope lies in dreams, in imagination, and in the courage of those who dare to make dreams into reality. It's one of the greatest physicians who ever lived. He's not talking about medicine here. He's not talking about science here. He's talking about hope lies in dreams, in imagination, and in the courage of those who dare to make dreams into reality. Powerful. This is one of the deepest lessons of this Shabbat's Torah reading. A life of faith means accepting that not all our dreams and all of our wants and all of our needs are going to be fulfilled. It's just impossible. We may not see our visions realized, but no moment of service is wasted. We may never see what we want to do realized, but we're not wasting our time by doing it. A no from God on one thing is a yes for something else. When God says no about one thing, it means yes for something else. That's for us to determine. We're partners with God in the creation. It is no coincidence that this Torah reading is read on the Shabbat after Tisha B'Av, and it's read on Shabbat Nachamu, the Shabbat of comfort. After mourning our destruction and exile, we ask ourselves, how do we move forward when our dreams are unrequited? How do we do it? The answer is Moshe, the answer is David, and the answer is to keep building, keep doing, keep working. We may not merit to see the end of our efforts. Maybe we don't. Moshe and David did not. But that didn't stop them. That didn't diminish the meaning of what we were doing. Like Moshe, we can prepare the way. Like David, we can write the song. A prayer that ends in no is still holy. A dream that does not come true can still inspire others. A leader who will not cross the finish line can still carry a torch. May we all learn to turn our unanswered prayers into enduring legacy that can make the world just a little bit better than the way we found it for our fellow Jewish people, for Israel, and for all humanity. And let us all say, Amen. I want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom and Am Yisroel Chai.